Hello, can you hear me? Test, test, test. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Hello. Okay, give me 1 second. Trying to do some health related. Trying to. I have type 1 diabetes, so I'm trying to like get my insulin to deliver properly. This stupid mechanism broke. But all right. Give me 1 second here. All right. Da-da. Oh, I gotta get off VPN. I might lag a little bit. All right. Da-da-da. We are May 5th. So, one thing I'm gonna ask Andrea is if we can just merge changes. Because like right now we're kind of blocked on Andrea, so we can't merge anything, even if we agree to merge something. So I'm gonna ask him to change that since so that'll happen sometime this week, I think. Um, and then I did update the PR to use namespaces if you saw that, David. So let me show you, or not namespaces,
Thanks.
CD events. Yes. So if we go to the documentation now. Oh wait, maybe I didn't push it. Ah, I forgot to push it. Oh, I just changed it here. I need to update the examples. Okay, let me update the examples. But yeah, so this will now be CD events, not whatchamacallit. Um, earns. So that should make things a little bit easier. Um, so that's that. So that should be able to be approved. And then let me see here. I think we also had this one. So I thought about this PR a little bit more. Um, and let me go to the agenda real quick. And
Good morning. Oh, afternoon.
oh, morning, morning.
Yeah, I added it doesn't have to be on the agenda, but it's a document shared with Daisy. I want to just share it as well. You don't even need to look at there. The main idea is how agentic AI is going to impact the workflow for CI/CD and data ops. So that's something that in the DataOps group we come up with. Yeah, just want to share in case you have time to take a look.
Yeah, yeah, we can definitely take a look. Yeah, so that'll be next once. Actually, I wonder if I can make this nicer. Let me see. This is data ops plus agentic. Let's do this. Mm, subject ID merge. So I thought about this a little bit more, David, and I still couldn't find a good reason to not keep them. Um, I couldn't find a good reason to merge them, um, other than like convenience. So I really tried to, but I couldn't think of anything that would really highlight the benefit of keeping them separate. So the main use case I was thinking about specifically for subject source, where subject source um, became more important than the subject ID was actually in observability. And one example that I was thinking of is if I wanted to or if I wanted to look at, and I'll give you kind of a little bit of the context here of the example. So the context dot source may not necessarily be the tool, right? It might be the cluster. It could be, the tool itself. And I think there was another example, but there's like multiple. basically where it's coming from, not like the tool exactly, right? So,
Right.
so when I started thinking about that, I was like, okay, if I wanted metrics on just GitHub itself, right, then I could just like pull out the subject source and, and mind you, this is me thinking about that subject source needs to have a strict format because if you don't have a strict format, it becomes very hard to do anything with it by itself. And I think that's the problem. So if subject source, let's say we use that CDEvents kind of format I'll just call it a CDEvents URI, then I think that becomes very clear on how to model, let's say, like a GitHub tool, right? So a GitHub tool would be the subject source would be the GitHub tool. It'd just be like the CDEvents URI that we have, and we'd be able to query just for GitHub at that point, right? As opposed to like parsing the ID. So that was the example that I could come up with that strictly from observability, if I just want to know how many events are coming from a particular system, I'd be able to, right? So that was the use case that I think would be a common enough use case that would highlight the importance of it. But like I said, it highlighted the importance of subject source needing, I think both subject source and context source needing a stronger format. Does that make sense, David?
Yes. Today, with CDVs, I already have this information from context to source. I already provide a dashboard where I say how many events coming from different sources.
Right. And that's yeah, and like I said, I think like you have to rely on, you know, either a context source or subject source to kind of like figure out this information, right? And I think that makes a lot of sense for that use case. And merging them would require the database query to do like a prefix or something similar, right? So so with that said, I think we keep them separate, but introduce a strict format, which we'll just use our CDEvents URI, because literally that's what it's for, right? Just making things, it's a resource URI essentially, and the resource in this case is GitHub, um, and I think that would solve this issue of making it queryable. Um, Subject source queryable requires stricter format. So this is kind of like what I'm thinking, right? So if we're to introduce that, would that help satisfy some of the concerns you have, or were you still thinking that you want them merged? Because like I said, I think in terms of keep merging them is more from a convenience standpoint, but even the convenience is pretty low. So I'd rather keep them separate.
Why, as I said in the ticket, but it will be easier if we discuss this topic because we will spend another hour.
Yes,
But we can
yes.
discuss on the topic. I answer. My purpose is to have a unique ID for subject. I suggest to merge because today I don't use the source at all. I use the ID and I put the GitHub ID. I could say I use the URI of the GitHub resources in the case of GitHub or the GitLab, and each of one have its own way, but it can be used by any system to without some transformation to rely on what is the resource on GitHub, what is the resource on GitLab. It could be about the pipeline, the job, not the artifact because we have a standard. It could be about task, workflow, repository. I don't create a new format today. We can introduce a new format. Today, I use the URI of the resources because those systems already provide URI for those resources.
Okay.
So when I say I suggest to merge, it's because in my ID, it just remove the source, just have ID, but to be backward compatible, how we can do it is to re-inject the source for systems that maybe use subject source to re-inject them by merging. But in reality, my say what is the purpose of subject source, because source ID, if ID was just local, it is useless. Just have a number, it's useless for a consumer, but it's why. But we as I mentioned, you can comment on the ticket and use the sample I provide, maybe with the URN, etc. As we discussed. I would like to avoid to introduce a new format, but we can. Today we are, because if we have a new format, it means that we will have to for the consumer, if you want to have to know how to have the URI to access the external resources, you will have to parse the format in a certain way. Today, for package URL artifact, it's a bit a pain for me, because package URL, it's a new format, and it's not the format used by Maven. It's not the format used by Kubernetes or Docker, etc. for artifact. So
yeah, but that's actually solvable though. So the CDEvents, like I'll give an example, right? We could do this, like, and like this is actually valid. You can have query parameters, right? Where it's like HTTPS, for example, right? So you could totally do that, and this is just optional. So you don't like do any sort of correlation to this. But if you want to like actually get the information, you could do that. So that's actually solvable, and I think that's okay. But I do want to say that so yeah, we'll keep this like pretty short, like 5 minutes, because I definitely want to get to the data ops document. But
yes,
the idea here is that the purpose of subject source is literally say what tool or service that sent it, right? As opposed to like where it came from, like whereas in like where it could be also from the tool or service. But I think another thing that we can do is rather than saying for unique ID, saying that it's subject source or context source, let's just remove the subject source uniqueness. Let's just say it's always content source plus subject ID for global uniqueness, just for global uniqueness. That's what this constraint is for. And I think that would also help.
no,
Why?
because the uniqueness today is context ID plus context source. If we say, oh, and we should also provide uniqueness with context source plus subject ID, it will be a pain for a system to ensure this. And it means that when someone wants to reference a subject, it will become hard to reference something, because it don't know who is the context of the resources.
Right, but I thought source was Let me see, it's format global.
It's the ambiguity of the current context source, but
Yeah, but that's my point. That's what I'm trying to fix. Which let me see here. Subject source matches source. Source is what I'm saying is we get rid of this. This field should only be used in cases where the source of the subject is different from the source of the event. I'm saying we just get rid of this restriction, or should only be used is different. Like I think we should just get rid of this. Like I don't think it's useful. And I don't really understand the intention of this. And maybe we can create, or maybe this is something we can add in the GitHub issue. Because I think if we remove this restriction, it kind of gets rid of the well, it helps some of the ambiguity in context source as well, which is here. Signal a group of producers that belong to the same application. Yeah, it's a cloud cluster, for example. Yeah, if there's multiple contexts. So yeah. I think. Oh, so sorry. I didn't mean subject ID. I meant context ID. That's wrong here. So rather
did
than
you share something on the screen or not?
which one? Yeah, I am sharing. Or do you not see anything?
No, just a black bar.
Oh my God.
I see the mouse sometimes, but I only see a black bar.
Okay, sorry. Let me see. Try this again. Can you see it now?
Same things. Ah, yes.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. Yeah. So where was I? Okay. So actually, I put subject ID here, but this is supposed to be context ID for uniqueness. I always get those two mixed up, but yeah. So
It's already the rules. Today we have uniqueness by context source plus context ID.
yeah.
It's part,
Okay.
it's part
So
of the
let me
rule.
just make sure because I thought uniqueness for context, you must be unique for subject ID within the given source. This is what I'm saying right here. Is oh no, this is also fine because that's not part of that. Okay, so I think we're okay. Oh, okay, maybe we don't need that constraint because that constraint already exists. Okay, sorry, that already exists. Never mind. Um, so I think at that point, the main issue here is in context source, let me see, global uniqueness for source plus ID, that is fine. When selecting the format source event, okay. Yeah, see, this is why I don't like the different formats. But yeah, I think we're okay here though. But either way, I'll update the ticket with some of the discussion here. Um, because like I said, I think subject source definitely has a purpose. It's just that context source might represent the same scope, right? And I think that's where the confusion lies. Um, so yeah, which is fine. I think that's okay. But yeah, so all right, I'll update the GitHub issue with some of the discussion points as well. And we can kind of land on something. But I have a feeling we're gonna probably keep them separate because, like I said, I think there's more benefit to keeping them. Well, there is more benefit in keeping them separate. So yeah. And then
Provide the benefits in the ticket. It's what we concluded last week. It's answer provide the example. I provide some examples.
well, yeah. I gave the example, right, which is like like using GitHub as an example for querying, right? And just because you do it today doesn't mean that it removes the purpose of subject source, like, right? Because like if context source and subject source is different, then that's the benefit of it, right? So I want you to really, kind of step away. Just because you can do it for your current systems right now doesn't mean that there is not a use case where both
I also did it because, as we mentioned previously, it's optional and we use ID plus source should be usable for reference in other elements. And if something is optional, it's not a real reference. It's not usable as a reference because people that create a link to this source, for example, a service to an environment, it should not have ambiguity on how to create the link to this environment. All the purpose is how we create this reference. ID and source should be a reference. But
yeah,
and I disagree on the third line. Purpose of the subject source is not the event came from. The event came from is the context source. Subject source is the subject, is where the subject lives.
I think that's what I was trying to say, but give me 1 second. In this case, the field should be only used. So in this example, we see staging tecton, right? So, this doesn't have, wow, why do you not have subject source in here as part of the example? Okay, that doesn't help.
Yes.
So what I was thinking is like the source here would be like staging tecton or cluster 1/tecton. The subject source here might just be tecton, right? So yeah, defining the context in which the subject source, in which the subject originated. Defines the context.
In my opinion, this example is completely wrong.
Yeah, I was gonna say this example just doesn't seem right. Uh, okay, so
Except if Tecton today is able to emit CDEvents. I guess it
yeah,
could, but it will not just say it's the pipeline. It will provide the full URL because you can have several Tecton service, several etc.
right. I think this is still true. Because like you said, like it says right here, right? In most cases, subject source would match content source, right? That literally means that this is where it's coming from, right? With tool or service. So, but it seems like there's a little bit of a caveat here. Either way, though, like I said, that's how I've always interpreted it, is that it's very specific to the service in the tool, right? As opposed to the context source, it's more about the grouping or cluster information, namespace information, things of that nature, right? So, like this, for example, like these.
It's for me, context, it's about the event itself.
I understand that, but what I'm getting at though is the examples, right?
This
Literally,
example was probably made this way, but it's not as today. You know better than me, a Spinnaker, but I'm sure Spinnaker is not the source of a CD event, a context of the event itself.
yeah, it would be. The context source would be like Spinnaker, like my team / Spinnaker. Like that's what it would be. And then the subject source would just be Spinnaker. Or it could just be my team Spinnaker. It just depends how you want to actually represent it. But
for me, context source is, as you mentioned in the note, is the tools that emit the event. Because the event could be transformed, etc., like a proxy in HTTP or something.
right. Let me see here. I might have it.
Because if we want to be able to integrate a lot of systems, what I'm working on, the systems that emit the event, the CD event itself is not the system or the tools that own the subject or manage the subject.
Yeah, but if you look at, but the problem is if you look at source here, the definition, it literally says in
Yes.
which an event had happened, right? And then it gives examples, right, of like clusters, namespaces, teams, etc., right? So
Yes, but it also means that it's linked to the ID. It's to help identify the ID. So if you use an ID and a source that don't know about this ID or how this ID was created, it doesn't make sense.
yeah, if you try to give it semantic meaning, yes, you're absolutely right because there's no strict format. And that was kind of like my point. We should probably introduce a strict format if we want to give it semantic meaning, right? But since we treat them as opaque strings as simply as identifiers, then there's really like that's you can only go based off of how your team is sending these events, right? Like there's really or setting the context source, right? So and then for subject source, it's a little bit of the same thing, right? So but either way, let's table the discussion. Let's talk on the GitHub issue and talk about some of these points, right? Because we definitely need to tease out like kind of the differences as well. Because I know whenever I talk with people, people have a kind of a different take on what subject source and context source means, and I think it definitely confuses people. So, but yeah.
And as we said previously, we should provide real examples.
Oh yeah, for sure. And if we're
And
going to
discuss
include an
about real.
example, we need to have every field also set, right? Like especially if it's like subject source, like even if it's optional, we should have it in here, right? So people really know like what the heck it is. So yeah, I agree. Like we need to fix this. I'll actually create a GitHub issue for this because yeah, this example is just not good enough to really deliver the message. Oh, that's not it. I wanted to link that. Okay. Okay, so let's move on then, and let's kind of go over this. Oh, it's very bright. Do they have dark mode? Yes, they do. No, they don't. Okay. All right, sorry guys, you're gonna have to be blinded. So, but Victor, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, cool. So yeah. So give us a little bit of context about the doc here.
Yeah, so this is after discussion with the DC that he is going to Open Summit to give a keynote there about CDEvents. So in the DataOps meeting, we've been discussing about how to create DataOps, and now there's a lot of agentic agent. If you cloud code, all those agent taking part in the development process. So we're thinking, how does those affect DataOps? And in turn, how does those affect CI/CD events, right? Because one of the actually in where I live, a newly graduate student attending going to Google was told that her job is not coding, but review what the agents created and then yeah, so review, commit, that's how they do. So um, so that's why we're just trying to figure out how does it affect the CD events, if any. It it doesn't have to change any the existing event, but at least if there's no need to change, we need to explain to like whoever adopts CD events and data ops event that we already considered agents. So whatever however you change your workflow to use AI agent for as development life cycle, this CD event apply to the new workflow as well.
So
That's
when you
the
say change, so just real quick, so when you say change, like what do you mean? Like what scope do you mean there? Like do you mean like adding a field or do you mean creating new events? Like what does that mean?
just the workflow get completely changed, right? So the difference between agent and the previous CI/CD automation is previous CI/CD automation. There's no agent which have its own autonomy, right? Meaning it's not deterministic. So when an agent do something, there's no saying, okay, with this input is going to come out with that output. There's no such a thing. Agent is a LLM agent or any agent. It's most likely is non-deterministic. Based on the data, it can give you a different next step as part of the CI/CD data ops pipeline. So so that's I think that's the key difference between a CI/CD pipeline with agent versus without agent. So yeah, so so this is just some initial thought. I created some initial thoughts and then took it and extended to more details. This is what it is.
Okay, yeah, I think so. CD events actually doesn't need to change. Like the whole point of events themselves is that they're kind of like they just describe what happened, right? So even
Mhm.
if the workflow changes, the the events, even if they come out of order or done in a different manner, would be described by the events themselves. So inside of CD events, there's this concept of links, which is a graph API. So, connect point A to point B, basically. And if an agent is doing the work, they would just connect them differently if the workflow was different, for example. Um, and and I think that would all that would be required to be being done because I don't know if they're so if the ask is to be able to distinguish the difference between an agentic user versus a human user, then that's a different ask. Is that, I just want to make sure you're not also asking for that, correct?
Uh, to be honest, we're not sure what to ask at this point. That's what we're
Oh, I
trying to
see. I see you are
uh,
asking for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So, for example, in the past, you use Tecton or Jenkins or whatever tools out there, right? So
Mhm,
that workflow is supposed to basically pass the baton from one developer to another because I'm done with my part. Now it's your turn, right? That's what the CI/CD workflow is for, the framework and the platform.
mhm.
Now, instead of that, this is like one person and talking to Cloud Code saying, please, I have this requirement. I want to create something for a payment application. Please create me using Go language with this requirement. And boom, it created. That's it. So how did that fit this current CI/CD pipeline?
Yeah, the question is whether or not we want that boundary or that distinction, right? And I don't know. So for metrics, I can definitely see a benefit, but in terms of the SDLC, like the a flow, there's really no difference between whether a human did it, a system account did it, a bot did it, a genic user did it. Like it doesn't really matter, right? So I guess my question here is, what is the end goal? Let's say all this information exists today. What would you do with it?
The angle is the when we create a event, in this case, data ops event, and extending CD events, we
Mhm.
want it to be agentic ready.
Got it. Okay, okay. And so what does that mean though?
That's the part we don't know.
Okay, okay.
So I just said it can very be that there's no need to change. Everything's still the same.
Mhm,
It just we need to be ready, and then the best way to test it is probably when Delisi create his app to show it to the people who are already using agent to do the full development lifecycle and see how does this new control plane help with agentic with Cloud Code workflow.
mhm. So there is
Yeah.
some things you can do inside of links, but I don't know if it's really useful there. But in terms of like, okay, so CD events is supposed to represent the SDLC, right? So does the SDLC actually include a user? I don't know if it does a user as what is it? Like a state. I don't think it does. So I would argue that we probably don't need to change. But there are some things you could do to to accomplish the thing that you're asking for. And I think you already highlighted this, and it said with a link to on behalf of. So you could do this, something similar to this, where you could actually define like what it is or who it is, right? So that is an option. Um,
It said the goal is not to change the CD event. The goal is to make sure CD events is able to adapt to the change.
it changes. Yes, yes, yes. Well, I'm just trying to think like worst case scenario, right? Like it needs to change. What would that look like, right? Or if it doesn't need to change, how would we accomplish whatever it is that needs to happen, right? And I think for the most part, I think we're pretty covered. But I don't want to say that. So
So
I don't want to say that without thinking about this some. Um,
yeah, we created this document because the DC attended the DataOps meeting last week. So the goal is to create something that he can, read beforehand and maybe either purposefully ask questions at Open Summit or kind of if somebody asks, can know, what to answer or get information back to this group, feedback basically about agentic AI and CD event and DataOps events.
Right, right. Okay. I think another way of thinking about this is because I kind of look at it like this. So pipelines have multiple ways of being triggered, right? It could be triggered by a user, another pipeline, a cron job, for example, right? Like just inside of like any sort of a orchestration tool, right? We don't model that in CD events, right? We don't model like the type of trigger that that caused it, right? And I feel like agentic is kind of humans or the actor is kind of very similar to like the trigger because they're like that's the thing that causes the trigger and if we don't include the trigger I would argue we probably shouldn't include the user or whatever it may be, right? So that's probably my argument right now. So I don't think we need to change. But with that said, let me think about it because, like I said, this is a lot, and I want to make sure that I spend some time, making sure I go because, like, it's actually the one thing that I was thinking about as I was like went to the end here. I was like, well, what kind of event types like are we? And then you listed out these three. I think we need to really think about this because why this is important is because it could be no, we don't need to change anything for one and two, right? But for some reason, three, it might make sense, right? So I just want to make sure that I think about all the use cases and edge cases to make sure that I say I give you an answer and turns out like I just didn't properly think about it. Um, but but I do see what you're trying to do, or at least how you're trying to model it. And I think it would be really helpful too, because like you said, we're ready for it, but we don't know what exactly we're ready for, like what the thing,
Yeah.
like so unless it's like something a little bit more concrete, it's hard to kind of, you know, give you a definitive answer whether or not CD events needs to change and by how much, right? So I
Yeah.
think once we have like a concrete requirement there, like that would make it a little bit more helpful on giving you an answer that I'll be more
Yeah.
comfortable
I'll
giving.
give you
But yeah.
another example, actually, even is broader for DataOps event. You can think of there's a lot of saying software service is dead, right? Because that workflow is being replaced by AI because AI is going to do everything. It doesn't have to follow the human workflow, right? But that's what the software service is for. It's basically human workflow, right? So that so those are similar to CD event, except it's not for software development; it's for everything, right? All the data flowing around, from the data acquisition to analysis to archiving, all those different workflow. So that's going to be very drastic change. Uh, so what need to change? How do you define data ops event to model that?
Hmm.
The changes before and after.
Okay. Hmm. Okay, yeah. I'll need to think about it some because like I said, I haven't spent too much time thinking about like agentic just in general in terms of CD events. And I probably should. So let me get back to you. And let me read this. And what we can do too is once I have thought through this, I can let you know. Um, or maybe I can just put comments in here. Would that help? Just putting comments in here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And the goal is to before the DC go to his Open Summit keynote, we
Mhm.
get something, get him ready so he can uh, get more feedback from there with that clear, relatively more information.
Got it, got it. So I wanna play a little bit of a semantics like devil advocate here. So we have human actor types, right? And you said we have system, agent, and then hybrid, right? So what is the difference between system and agentic? And please don't say the use of AI, right? Because
Uh, the yeah, so there's this concept of system of systems, right?
mm,
So it really how define how you define a system. So a system can be a single agent, which is itself can achieve a particular goal, if complete any particular task, right? Or it can be an application created by a company or developer for a particular task, like payment or transportation management, etc. Right? That's a system. Together with other applications, they form system of systems, which, if there's no human involved, it could be a really fully autonomous system of agents, right? AIs. So, yeah, so the behavior is obviously human want to be in the loop, but how be in the loop, and but at the same time does not stop the automation to be stopped.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
So
does
can I
that?
give you where I have a little bit of issue with the boundary? So system, I think of an agent as
Mhm,
a element within the system like definition, like
mhm.
part of that set. But it, uh, I guess my question to you then is because you actually kind of actually just said it, right? You said system, and agent, right? Or system agent, right? So like, so it almost sounds like an agent is a type of system account, no? Or actor?
Um, to really give a proper uh, definition is hard because there's so many different definitions, and goes back to the ontology, the philosophy level discussion.
Right, right.
Yeah,
But when we talk about these things, we need to be very clear, right? Because whenever
yeah.
we introduce it to the spec, we have to be very opinionated and give the definition, right? So that's why, like, if we say something is a system, like it needs a strict definition, and if we say something's an agent, it needs a strict definition. And if an agent is a part of a system, um, that's fine, but we just need to say, but I would argue, do we need agent at that point? And if the argument is yes, we just need to call that out, is my point. So
There's two part to your question here. About the definition, I can take it to the IEEE. They do this kind of thing to discuss the concept. They will be able to give more precise definition.
okay,
Then the second about in the concept of the discussion, yeah, in the short term we can definitely come up with the kind of a definition for the scoping purpose.
mhm.
uh, yeah, either way, we should be able to do what's needed.
Okay, okay, awesome, awesome. Yeah, because like I said, the issue that I have is like when I talk to people, like I always make the assumption like they know, they use the same like definitions as me, and it turns out they use something that's like completely different. So that's why I always think it's like it's important to be very clear on like what these terms
That
mean.
that's a very good point. If you have a list of important terms that's not clear, please
Mhm.
please compose them. I said I participate as a generalist. I don't have to do a lot of real stuff, so I participate in the IEEE discussion as well. I can find out who is defining this, and get a relatively universally accepted definition of this stuff.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Yeah, that'd be really, really helpful. Okay, so I think, yeah, so what I think I will do, so what I will do is let me think about this some. Um, because like I just don't want to give you an answer, like that's not fair to you. You guys are spending time looking at this, making these docs, and like I'm just going off of intuition, right? So what I will do is I will think about this some. I'll try to create maybe some requirements of like what the future might look like. Well, like what, well, like just based off like past patterns that I've seen like in software, like this is probably what's going to be needed for like, for system counts. These are probably what's going to be needed for these actor types and these actor types, and see if I can come up with anything meaningful. And if I can't, then that probably tells me that CDEvents doesn't need to change. Or if it does need to change, it might need to be very little. But even if it's very little, it'll definitely will be a good thing to call out, right? So yeah, I'll respond in this doc, and I'll have I'll have some questions as well based off some of the intentions here. Um, and kind of like the goals, right? And the reason why I keep saying goals is like if I'm a like let's say I'm a some sort of consumer like of CDEvents, and I consume like this like workflow that's from like a particular agent. Let's say it's a system account, right? Versus like a human. what benefit, like what can I use that information for to kind of like help, I guess, identify something or do something with it? Like, is there a clear use case that you're thinking of? I mean, you gave the data ops one, but I'm thinking like something that's outside of data ops, right? Like, or is this only strictly related to data ops, do you feel?
No, I think it's in AI in general, right? That's
Okay.
useful to define. The reason I'm interested in, from CD events to data ops event is just like you observed, find out the definition of a system agent that's different from person to person. So you can
Hmm.
imagine in the future, if you're in a spaceship, right, you're going to the Mars, and then
Hmm.
you talk to the AI, which is the agent in a spaceship, say, please. Maybe name it data. Data. I want to go to Mars in the place where there's actually some water. Please find the coordinates for that, and I need you to talk to this agent with this name, etc. And he should be able to, number one, know the ontology so he can understand you perfectly. Second, he need to know the event so that he know what steps to take to do that, to get there. So standardize both the ontology as well as the events really helps the communication with AI.
Okay. Okay. So I see what you're saying now. Okay.
But
Yeah. Let me think.
what is the relation with software development lifecycle? The examples you provide is about a runtime usage of agent, not the
Yeah.
creation of the software.
Yeah, so software is one uh well, first of all, CD event already exists. Data ops doesn't exist. So using CD events is a good starting point to extend it, if anything need to be. Second is, yeah, just for CD event, eventually human still need to be in the loop for software development, right? So that how to understand what has changed. Uh, so for people who use Cloud Code to do CI/CD development, do they still need use any of the existing framework or not? That's the first question. Second, if so,
I can answer to this one. I discuss with few company, and I have also my own use case.
mhm.
Uh, Today, companies still rely on CI/CD pipeline to enforce what is created in front in terms of code by Cloud Code or etc. Or they use Cloud Code or etc. to generate tests that will be part of the CD of or the workflow. Now, it's right. I'm talking with companies that are under some kind of regulation, but it's not one delivery follow one workflow and another completely follow another workflow because an agent change the workflow on the fly depending on the release and its behavior. So we today there is no agent doesn't change the flow. It's like for a data pipeline, your agent will not rewrite Airflow pipeline or Dagster pipeline or whatever pipeline to your data transformation on the flight. So you will have always the pipeline, the step, etc. And the software
Yeah.
lifecycle by itself will not change. And the purpose of CDEvents is to help people to have a vision, to react about what happened during this software pipeline. It's not general event workflow system. It's
Yeah.
my
And
current opinion.
yeah, no, David, actually, I'm in agreement with you, and I think I tried to say that at the very beginning. But I think what Victor is getting at, and I think he's just trying to understand if CD events as is right now, is it useful for agentic? Like, I think that's the ultimate question. And if it isn't, what needs to be done, right? And like I said, I don't think anything needs to be done to see the events because like that's not the point of it, right? It's to describe the software development lifecycle. but it is a good thought process, right? And I think that's what he's really asking for. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Victor, but
It's why we say
Yeah.
what is the agentic change today? And today, I don't see change on it due to agent or external. Agent are like a system or an automation. You will maybe route differently, you will be maybe change some parts, but you will not rewrite everything
I'm
from
sure
the.
the CD event will be useful, but maybe in a different way than before, because now with agent being part of the picture. It's just
yeah.
how to define it, so it will be kind of already stress tested for the coming age of agent AI development.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's definitely a good, thought experiment to have. Like I said, I haven't thought too much about it, mostly because, like I said, the requirements aren't really known at this point. Um, but I really want, to highlight that, because like I had the intuition that CD events wouldn't change. I think DDEC also said the same thing, and also David said the same thing. So my inclination is that CD events probably won't need to change to satisfy the AI use case. But with that said, I will spend some time thinking about it because, like I said, like I think we're all just kind of going off like what like just like off our intuition and a little bit of like where we worked a little bit in this space. Um, and I think understanding because like there's definitely a lot to think about. It's not just like one particular problem that you're trying to solve here. So yeah, like I said, I'll spend some time on this doc. I'll think about some of the some of the questions that I had as well. And then and then take a look at some of the semantics that I'll get you a list of the semantic clarification that's needed for particular words. Does that work?
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Yes.
All right,
And
awesome, awesome.
I can confirm today we don't have a user as the concept of actor of user inside CDEvents. And when I translate from GitHub or GitLab where this concept exists, I store this information as part of the custom data. But as you mentioned in the document, user ID is related to the application where this user exists. I mean, my account on GitHub and my account on GitLab, it's a completely different user ID for the same person.
Yeah, and I think too, like that's what I was calling out, like with the pipeline triggers. We don't model that because it's very closely related to the actor. But yeah, that's like I said, I think me and David are actually on the exact same page. But yeah, either way, I'll spend some time thinking about this. And David, if you also want to take a look at this as well, it'd be really helpful. But yeah, I'll definitely get back to you, Victor. And if you have any other questions based off of like what I said here today, just ping me on Slack or just open up a thread on Slack. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. Well, I think we're at time, so I appreciate everyone's participation and time here. I always appreciate everyone's input, and I'll ping Andre as well to kind of like change the merge story because like right now having two maintainers especially at the opposite ends of the world makes it a little bit more difficult to get things merged. So I'll talk with him about that, and then we can kind of go from there. And Victor, I'll probably have the doc questions comments by the end of this week.
Oh, any word you have, if you can get to me, I know it's too soon. If you can, just any word you can think of that definition problem, if you can give me today, that would even be better because I'll
Oh,
actually
okay. Yeah, I
meet
can.
someone tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, okay. I can get you the list of words today if yeah, I could definitely do that today.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks.
All right, awesome. All right, well, thanks everyone. I'll see you next week. All right. All right, bye
Yes.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.